Hello, hello, and welcome to the Finding the Unicorn in You podcast. What a beautiful day to inspire lives. My name is Jaime G, Raygoza, your host, and I am so excited to have you here. Let's get ready to meet some fantastic unicorns and learn how to unleash the inner unicorn in you. Let's get started. Hello, and welcome to another episode of Finding the Unicorn in You. Today, I have an award-winning professional life and end-of-life organizer and certified life coach. She is passionate about supporting people in clearing clutter in all areas of their lives, getting organized, and becoming more mindful and aware. She also hosts popular self-help podcasts, Clear Your Clutter Inside and Out, and is the author of 15 books, including the Got Clutter 365 Journal Prompt Series. Now, without further ado, I welcome Julie Coraccio.
Hey, thank you so much for having me. I'm thrilled to be here.
I'm really excited to have you here. So why don't you tell us a little bit about clutter?
Well, I'm a little bit different from people. I started my business in 2009 and I do a lot of personal growth work. And so I had this out my business, and I never recommend changing your business name, but my business name had been Healing Through Organization. And then I worked with this client one day and she said, "Can we just talk?" And I said, "You're the client. We can do whatever you want to do." But what was so fascinating is we spent about 3 hours talking about her life, things that had happened to her. And in that last hour, we were able to clear so much clutter. It was an aha moment for me, like, what's deeper? And in the meantime, I'm doing this internet TV show called Reawaken Your Brilliance, where I interview body, mind, spirit experts because that's something I'm interested in. And that influence, and I'm like, "Oh, you need a coach now, you need to bring that in and see the bigger picture of clutter. It's not just the physical stuff, it's so much more."
Hmm. Wow. We all have physical and mental clutter that stops us from getting through our daily lives. So I know you in the bio, I read that you do it beginning and end of life. So can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. So, end of life, a lot, especially I will speak for America because I'm American and we definitely are afraid of death. And that's a cultural thing. And, my personal belief is we have so much plastic surgery in this country is because it's a way of really staving off death. We think if we look younger, if we're more youthful, then maybe that's going to stop the marching to the end of time. And it really isn't. And so it's about bringing you peace of mind. We never know when our number's called. My mom died about 2 years ago. And prior to that, what got me interested is my dad sat us down and said, "I want you to know all this. When I die, I want the cheapest coffin you can get." And he said, "When your mom's late to the funeral, don't yell at her." And so when my
Mhm.
mom died, I was like, "Well, this is all prepared." And it wasn't. And my dad's like, "Yeah, she didn't want to talk about it." So when you're grieving, it's really hard to make these decisions. So it not only helps you, but it helps your loved ones so that they
Mhm.
can concentrate on grieving and getting through that process instead of being like, "Where's the safety deposit key? Did she want to be cremated? Did she want an end of life celebration? What is it?" So that's the end of the life stuff that I do. And then obviously life. Do we have a transition? Do we get married? Do we have a baby? Organizing around that as well.
That's brave of what you're doing. It goes beyond just the United States. A lot of people don't want to think about death.
Hmm.
They don't talk about it because I'm just saying because in Mexican culture, we don't talk about it. Like we talk about celebrating people after death for the Day of the Dead, but we don't talk about the transition to death. It's always the after and the before, but never the middle. It's hard. I tried having this conversation with my mom and,
Hmm.
okay, so what are you looking at? What do you want? And then she's just, I don't know. I don't know. And why are you trying to kill me already? And I was like, I was not that I'm trying to kill you or I want this upon you. It's just you need to be prepared. So I told her I want to be cremated. I want to be spread or planted around a tree. And then she's just like, why are
Hmm.
you doing this? Why are you talking about this? You're just going to bring it into the future. I was like, death is going to happen whether we want to or not.
Yeah.
It's just, but it's fascinating how you talk about this topic.
And I want people to think a lot of people get hung up because they go, "I'm not a millionaire." Doesn't matter. What how do you wanna leave this earth? I hope I leave it a better place than when I came in. And so one thing I'm like, how can I create a cat sanctuary? That's one of the big things that I want to live passionate about animals. I'm like, maybe something for dogs too, but things like that and making sure my wishes are known. So we're in a little neighborhood here and we have a little community area. And when woman died, I want to leave that to the neighborhood. Well, she didn't have it in writing. Her family knew her wishes and the kids sold it so that they could build a house on it. Well, they didn't honor her wishes. And I'm personally not cool with that because I believe in karma and all that stuff and will come back to bite you. But if there are certain things that you want to have happen, you need that in writing. And the other thing we don't think about is our healthcare. What do we want to happen? You know what? Pull the plug. I've told my husband, I do not want to be a vegetable.
Hmm.
Like I don't want to linger for you. I'm not having that. When if and I don't want to go to extraordinary measures. You know, when my mom had a heart attack, stroke, another heart attack, and after all that, she had the DNR, which was do not resuscitate if she were to have another heart attack. And so it's like bright green. You can't miss it. They put it on the fridge, which is where they look for stuff. But I'm done. And my grandmother the same way. They're like, "Oh, if you have gangrene, we're gonna cut off your leg." And she's like, "Nope, let everything take its course." I don't wanna have beyond that. We have gotten in medicine to the point where we're gonna take these extraordinary measures instead of looking at what's our quality of life.
Yeah, I completely agree, and it's scary. It's a scary thing, and like I've told my friends and family that I want my organs to be donated. I
Mhm.
want 3 days max. If I don't wake up after that coma, unplug me. I do not want to be there
Yeah.
a long time because then it's a burden on the people that are still alive. It's
Yes.
I don't want them to be burdened to sacrifice their whole life, visit me every
Mhm.
single day at the hospital, and I say,
Mhm.
if it's my time, it's my time. Unplug me, don't plug me. I'm just gonna still be there. It's just whether or not I'm gonna wake up, and if it's meant to be, then after that 72 hours, I'm gonna wake up, and if it's not, oh well. I try to live my life with so much purpose and joy every single day so that I
Good
don't
for
regret
you.
anything. Like, the day that if I were to pass tomorrow, I've lived such a fruitful life, and I have no regrets. Everything that I've
That's
done,
awesome.
it's okay, and I tell people, and it frightens them when I say that. They're like, "Why are you saying that?" And I was like, "Because I'm content." If I were to die tomorrow, I've done so many things that I've wanted to so far. Yes, I can accomplish so much more, but I'm okay with that. You have to be okay with whatever happens.
Absolutely. Well, you're a unicorn in that regard, I can tell you. I know you're younger than I am because I can tell you that there aren't many people that I know could say that, so that's wonderful.
It's taken a long time and it's a process. And everybody else, there's days that you're like, oh, that was scary. Or if I almost got in a car accident, like I don't want to take my life away. Don't get me wrong. I value my life and I value living. I don't want to die, but I'm okay with the idea of if it happens.
You've made peace with it.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
And by doing so, you do become more unicorn-like in that you're willing to take more risks on yourself.
Mhm.
You're willing to lose it all and start all over because it's just a circle of life. Things are gonna go ups and downs. We're all gonna go through several things, and if you don't live life without risks, then you're not living, you're just surviving.
And you just have to learn how to I had to learn this in my 20s, but a therapist saying to me, "You gotta learn to ride the waves." There may be time that we all have it, so you let it pull you under, or do you ride it?
Mhm. Yeah, I completely agree. So, in this field of work, what would you say has been one of the most difficult things to either get clients to understand or even the transitions of going through all this?
I wanna say one of the best thing that's happened is it's opened up conversations, right? Because this is something we as a society don't talk about. So that's one of the good things that's happened. That one of the more challenging things is when hearing people about their regrets, about what they didn't do, what they would have liked to do, and the thing that probably makes me the most sad is when people fight over stuff
Yeah.
or, just pick over stuff like vultures, and I'm like, "Well, they're still alive."
Mhm.
And it's they owe you nothing. It is a gift for them to offer you things, and it was very hard, and I was like, "You just shut up. It's not your place. If the opportunity arises and you can slide something in there to make them think," but that's probably what that just makes me sad.
Yeah, and it's difficult. I've seen it in my own family. People have died and, like, I don't come from a rich family, but when people are left certain things, they do get a little greedy and
Mm,
they start to saying, I deserve this or I deserve that. Well, I took care of her here and I took care of her there or them, whoever it may be.
yeah.
But it defeats the whole purpose of death in that you're not cherishing the person anymore. It's all materialistic.
Exactly. My husband shared the story. He grew up very poor, and he said, and they're Italian and tons of kids and cousins and all that. And his grandmother was like, "Don't fight over my stuff after I go. There's not a ton." What'd they do? They all fought over it. And man, I don't want to be like that. I'm like, I don't want to be like that either. And one thing my grandmother did, which was cool, is she started when she was getting around, "Who wants this? Come in." And she was so funny. She was very like, "I'm fair." So one person to choose and then that and drew straws and all that. So she wanted to make sure everything was even Steven, but she decluttered that way and started lifting that burden. And then, made sure to avoid all that. Now it was in our family, it was fortunate my dad and his sisters all got along. So that didn't, become a backyard brawl, but it sometimes can turn into that.
Yeah, no, it definitely can. But transitioning into current and present life, what's one thing someone can do to start decluttering their life now, like right now? So not just for to getting ready for death, but just let's say that they feel like their life is a mess. How can they start? What's the first step they should do?
Excellent. Well, I want to share first thing, I want to share with my definition of clutter because it's a little different than most people. To me, clutter is anything that prevents you from creating the life you choose, deserve, and desire. And those words are
Mm.
very specific and purposeful. Like when we desire, like that's proactive pulling and making that stake. And so like want is like wah, wah, want like pulling towards. And I'm like, create, bam, I want it to be that proactive thing. And the other thing, I also want people to see the bigger picture of clutter. We've talked a little bit about physical and mental clutter. So I don't want you to see a messy desk as a messy desk. I want you to see that as a roadblock to a promotion or preventing you from writing the novel that we need, or a messy closet as being a roadblock to a relationship, right? Because they walk in and said, "Oh my gosh, I could never date anyone with a closet like that." So start to see the bigger picture of clutter. So I would say if you're like just overwhelmed, and many times when people have clutter, they're overwhelmed, like, where do I start? So sit quietly with yourself. What's causing you the most stress? Where are you the most frustrated? Where are you the most anxious? So start to ask those questions. And the great thing is, when you work on one area of clutter, it supports you in clearing in others. So the inner reflects the outer, and the outer reflects the inner. So if you start to clean up that desk, then you're going to get mental clarity, right? If you start to look at your emotional clutter and stop those knee jerk reactions, then that improves your relationships, right? So it's going to have that symbiotic effect.
I agree. And it's funny that you say that because this is something I always tell people in my life. And because they're like, you're always on top of things, you're always doing things. And I was like, there's one thing to realize because I'm probably not going to tell you that I need help. I was like, that's something I'm still working on.
Mhm.
But if you come into my space and that my car is not cleaned, my apartment is a mess, or like piles of stuff in my and like around my living area, something's going on. Because I like to keep my place the same way I like to keep my mind very clear, organized, and
Mhm.
concise. When it's not like that, everything starts to show.
Yes, and that's so great that you have that insight and are able to share that, but that's an excellent point to bring up. When what's going on because it's usually a deeper thing and we don't like hoarding. I don't work with hoarders and that's a whole other ball of wax and you know some deeper more traumatic things going on, but that's mental illness personified with all the hoarding.
Mhm. It takes a long time for one to start to go that route, but I do
Mhm.
think it is attached to some type of trauma or some type
Mhm.
of, like you said, mental health illness. But how so when clients come up to you and they said, "Hey, I wanna get decluttered," what are some common things that you usually see, like, with individuals?
Well, everything's individualistic. Having said that, overwhelm is a big deal, like not having confidence to create the life that they desire, not knowing where to start. I also have found with a lot of people, and happens to me too, and I still have to clear it out, is we hear those voices from childhood, or maybe they're from college, or the people who said we can't or not good enough. Don't do that. And so being like, okay, is that your voice or is that someone else who's interfering here? So that is a big part of it. I'm trying to begin being overwhelmed, or oh, that's true too, is being stuck and be like, I know something has to change, but I'm not exactly sure what it is. And so then that's about talking it through, working on some things, and let's figure out now what's best for you. I know what's best for me, and everyone listening knows what's best for them. So I view my job as supporting you in uncovering that, right?
Mhm.
Because you have that deep wisdom. What's best? It's like, how do we pull it out though and listen to it?
That's great. And we all have what we need inside us. Sometimes we just choose not to listen to it.
Yeah, 1,000%, right? Like, why don't how many times have we not listened to our intuition, right? It's
Mhm.
there to guide us, it's there to support us, it's there to save us, and we're like, "Mm-mm, oh, I don't know," or "Oh, send me a sign," and 20,000 signs come, "Oh, send me another one. I didn't see it, I'm not paying attention."
No, I completely agree. And for something that really stuck out from me from your bio was you wrote 15 books. That is such a great accomplishment. First of all, I applaud you for doing that because it took me a long time just to do one. So so
Well, it
how
was
was
years, it was years. And for me, like, the structure is the hardest part, and so with the clear your clutter inside and out, I'm like, I'm gonna keep it easy and name it the podcast, right? So that didn't take a
yeah.
lot of effort. But then taking episodes and being like, "How can I write this in book form?" And then people are like, "I need something quick." So I did the 21-day challenge to get people going, and then the other ones are journal prompts, and as I talked a moment ago, we all have the wisdom within. So I wanted to give people an opportunity, say, "Okay, this is I need to help with holiday clutter, relationships, finances, all that stuff, health, and so that they could sit down and write. And then what I did differently is I have a little line with a lotus because I've talked about people who have clutter being overwhelmed. Okay, so you write your answer. Then let's have that second step of picking out what's most important and what we've written down. And then we move it over here. Bam. Here's our solution. Here's what I have to concentrate on. And then obviously teaching people how do we take action? How do we make those goals to move forward, right? Because we need to have awareness plus action to create change in our life. And if we don't have those two things, then our life doesn't change. And I'd ask people who are listening, where were you 5 years ago? Are you where you want to be? Are you where you want to be next year? Because when we get older, especially time just bam, it's what? A year's gone by. And if we're not paying attention, then life completely slips by us.
I agree. So is there one that you consider your baby? Like one
Oh,
of your
you're so
favorite
funny.
your
Um,
favorite books?
you know what? I would probably say it was the Clear Your Clutter Inside and Out because that was the first one, and that took I mean, I worked on that 4 years.
Oh, wow.
Because I'd really and then, I have the worst grammar known to man. So, despite having wonderful teachers, it was never their fault.
Mhm.
So, I had to like, creating the structure really took me time and then having feedback and getting it edited and all those things. But I would say yes, just because that took so long but I stuck with it. You know what? I wanna be able to call myself a writer. That's super important to me. Just one foot in front of the other, keep doing it.
Yeah, and you're leaving your legacy out there, and that's something that people can still cherish and learn from years from now.
Yeah, that's really my hope.
Yeah, no, so that's amazing, and definitely a true inspiration for me as well, because it makes me think that, wow, you can definitely keep working and putting yourself out there way more and more.
Yeah, and you know what? Keep doing it. I wanna address something, that you brought up. Be proud of yourself for putting yourself out there. I can't tell you how many times I'm attacked, and, if you don't I have no problem if you don't agree with me. Cool, let's have a great conversation, learn, but I laugh. So I got a comment the other day on YouTube, "Your face scares the bleep out of me." Okay. Now, normally in the past, I'd maybe try to be like funnier. I'd be like, let's impart some wisdom and maybe someday and I was just like, you know what? Delete. I'm not even going to go there. And so I had nasty comments about the podcast. But then I have to remind myself, all those people say, hey, this helped me so much. Thank you so much. You were a guiding light. Because I guarantee you, all of you listening are making a difference to someone, and someone's watching you and paying attention whether you're aware of it or not. So you just let those keyboard warriors go to the side and know they're going to be there. You could have the best book ever in the universe and someone's still going to criticize it. I remember
Mhm.
seeing on YouTube Whitney Houston had an amazing voice, and her rendition of the Star Spangled Banner for me is the best that's ever been created. And I'm thought, if you all can criticize Whitney Houston, then I'm okay. I am in good company. I can accept whatever you throw my way.
Exactly, and I always tell people, and I've told myself as well, is that people are always gonna judge you for something, but that's
Mhm.
not a reflection of your work. It's a reflection of something that they're going through or an insecurity they have.
Yeah, and you know what? When you judge another, you judge yourself.
Mhm.
Because if you were judgment free of yourself, you wouldn't have the need to judge others.
Exactly, exactly, and I say if a person is that obsessed to really take the time out of their day to
Mhm.
look at my stuff, from because those are the ones that are seeing everything from start to finish. So
Yeah.
I was just
Mm.
so I was like, "You know what? Keep doing it because you're just, like, building me up."
Exactly. And again, I'm sure you're the same way. I welcome constructive feedback. I want to be write the best book possible. If there's an error, let me know. But it's a different saying like your face scares me, right? That's
Yeah,
what does that do? That does
nothing.
nothing.
No. Yeah, if there's somebody with an actual opinion or, like, saying, "Hey," and they're coming out of a good intent saying, "Hey,
Mhm.
I noticed this, maybe, you should work on this," and I'm open to listening and I'm open to adapting. I'm a lifelong learner, and I always want to consistently grow and learn and adapt. Times are consistently changing,
Yes.
and things that we learned 10 years ago are not the same way that we have it now.
I was talking to someone the other day and I saw someone from college who hadn't changed. Now, on one hand, you think, oh, if you're still the same good person, that's awesome. But this was a matter of you've not grown in your beliefs, you've not changed. Like it was, you were stagnant, you have not grown as a person. And to me, that was one, I'm like, no, we're way too old for this. That to me was sad. Like you
Yeah.
haven't grown and changed at all. Like I don't think that's a badge of honor. That's sad.
Yeah, because life gets change is a must. Change is something that is
Mhm.
gonna happen whether you like it or not, and you can try to stick with the old ways, but it's only stopping you from growing, it's only stopping you from succeeding,
Mm.
and I've seen it in people that I've worked with, I've seen it with people, like, in my friends and family where it's a little bit of complacency
Mhm.
with wanting to keep the old times alive because that's where they feel that those were the best parts of their life.
Mhm.
However, you can create new memories, you can create new joys in life. Just because your current situation is not the best doesn't mean it has to stay like that. That's where you have to change to make it
Right.
better.
Right, 1,000%. Also, like, when I was younger, life to me was more black and white. But when you've lived life, when you've lived experiences, when you meet people who don't look, act, think, and be like you, then well, no, there's some gray. It really
Mhm.
isn't black or white, it's gray.
I completely agree. And talking about changes and transitions, what would you say was one of the most difficult transitions that you've had to go through your journey?
Personal or professional?
Your pick.
More pick well, I would say personally, just because it's still fresh in my mind, it was I helped my mom transition. And we moved back to my hometown, which I'm in a small hometown, and it should be making a TV show out of it. Coming back in your 50s, and God love my husband because he was said, okay, let's do it. But it's oh my God, or things like the things that I don't want to remember from growing up here. So we had downsized. We were in North Carolina and Raleigh, and so like I'm never moving again. You're taking me out in a body bag, and then 2 years later we're moving again. So that was really hard because we had a setup there, and then finding a house and starting anew and starting so that and later in life. So it's when you're like in your 20s, I'm like, yeah, I'll move to LA. Let's do this. I can drive all over and do that. I'm like, no, too old for that now. So that's probably was a very challenging time, and I feel like I've almost started to really get settled. It's just like we had to live with my parents for a little bit until we found a house and dealing with my mom, and I hadn't been taking care of myself really well. So it was a lot to process. It was a lot to go on. I also remind myself, we've talked about those are just the waves of life, right? Everything's not
Mhm.
going to always completely flow. How can I do the best that I can do with what's going through right now?
Yeah, that's very difficult. Just uprooting your life, going somewhere and starting all over, and still with the transition with your mom that I'm so sorry that she passed
Oh,
away.
thank you.
And
But I would say this for anyone. One, I see butterflies all the time that I know because that's about paying attention. I remember we were hiking in West Virginia and really rainy day and there was no one there and someone walks out, three people in the whole park wearing a butterfly on their shirt, which reminds me, look, pay attention. And I was with her when she passed. And even though I still have fears around it, I'm like, oh no, like she is still here. Like I could feel the room filled with people welcoming her. If you ever have that opportunity, don't be afraid of it, embrace it, and then you can support them on their next journey.
mhm, I completely agree. And it's just you have to be aware of your surroundings and really appreciate everything that you see. There's so much beauty and
Mhm.
there's so many signs that you said that the universe gives you, but we just choose not to pay attention sometimes.
Exactly. So but being aware, right? And don't ever judge yourself. be kind to yourself. If you're doing the best that you can, that's okay. Maybe today the best that you could do was get out of bed. We all go through that. We all face that, right? And so celebrating where you are and just continually moving forward. I like to say that if people are like, "Oh my gosh, my whole house." Okay. But if we spend 10 minutes at the end of a year, that's over 60 hours. And boy, you can do a lot in 60 hours, right? So if you have
Hmm.
to chunk it down that minutely, that's okay, but you keep moving forward and you keep working on whatever it is you're working on.
I completely agree. I actually tried this out with one of my clients the other day where she did not want to start certain tasks because they said that they were too overwhelming and they were too big.
Mhm.
So I told her,
Mhm.
put a timer and put 5 minutes.
Yep.
When you start the timer, start doing the task. Once the timer ends, take a big deep breath, walk away. If you want to continue, you're more than
Yep.
welcome to continue. If you don't, then you just leave it there and do it again in an hour or 2 hours. But try to do 15 minutes a day, but in 5 minute increments.
Yeah. Yeah.
She's like, "That sounds stupid. That's not gonna work." And I was like, "Humor me,
Yeah.
throw me a bone. Just let's say that you tried it." She's fine. And the next week, I got 3 hours of my work done. I was like, "Good job." She's
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
I hated trying it, but each time I set the timer, I always wanted to keep going after the timer was going. And I was like, that's the whole point. It's just starting.
Right. Exactly. Exactly. I found that true for most things and most people. Just getting that once you get started, you get in that groove. And when you see, oh my gosh, I'm getting it done, right? It's that burden lifted from me. Then that's the motivation to keep moving forward.
And a lot of us just are scared to start because we're scared of not accomplishing it or failing it.
Mm.
You just have to get it out of your head. Just be mindful of what you're doing. Embrace failing. And if you are, then starting's not going to be a problem. Just do it. Just try it.
Wasn't it Michael Jordan was cut from his junior high basketball team? And there are thousands examples of that in every industry of people. Oh, you're not good enough. No, and now I'm a paid painter or whatever it is. But they kept with it. They said, okay, I was cut, but now I'm going to make myself work harder and ended up being one of the greatest players ever. I don't know anyone who hasn't experienced failure. And I don't look at it as failure. And I don't like the word mistake because me, it's if you've learned a lesson, like, if you continually do something over and over again, then yeah, I'd probably use the word mistake. But if it helps you course correct, or if you learn, it's not a mistake. It's a part of process of life and
Mhm.
learning.
Yeah. And I agree with you. Every mistake is just an opportunity, and it's opportunity for you to grow and for you to learn. And I tell people all the time, they're like, I failed at this. And I was like, and what did you learn from it? What came from that? The
Mhm.
world end? No.
Mhm.
I was like, "Are you still breathing?" "Yeah." "So, what can you do next time to be a little bit better so that you don't have this feeling again?" And it's not the actual mistake, it's the feeling that we place upon it
Mhm.
that
Yes,
we
yes.
try to avoid.
It's what we infuse on it. Like when people are struggling, they'll say, "Oh, I don't want to let this go because it has a memory." Well, your memories are in your head and your memories are in your heart. They're not on the object. We get confused because we think they are, but if you let the object go, then the memory will still be there.
Exactly. And that can be for good and bad memories.
Oh, 1,000%. You'd be amazed at the number of people who hold on to things that don't have good memories.
No,
Just think, and I'm like, "We can let this go, right? You don't have to carry this with you any longer. You can let the object go, and we can let the memory go, and we can say, 'Hasta la vista.' We don't need that, and we can move forward, and let those mean comments and let all those things it's time to let it go. It's been here long enough."
and through your journey of everything that you've gone through, if you can go back and give yourself one piece of advice, what would you tell yourself?
I would probably tell myself, "It's gonna be okay. Keep the faith, keep going. You don't give yourself enough credit. You're much stronger than you," and this is not just for me, this is for everyone. Have never given myself enough credit. Here's just something happened to me last week. So my health has been last year and this year has been the priority. I didn't take care of myself when taking care of my mom. I'm down 25 pounds. I'm halfway there. But last week at the gym, I had this she gave me this. I don't know what you call them. Like, it's not just like lifting weights. Like, you take a ball and you slam it and you do all these
These
different functional.
circuits.
So it's like a circuit training, like
Yeah.
functional. So stuff that I've never done before. And so anyway, she said, okay, half an hour, as many And I walked in and I said, "Is this a joke? 60 flutter kits?" Then 40 cats. She was like, "You're supposed to just chip away at it. We're shocking your body into trying something new." And I was like, "Okay." So I was like, "If I get," I'm like, "I don't think I can get around." She said, "I think you're only gonna get a round done." I got a round and a half done, and I was super pumped because I'm like, "Just keep with it." We talked about the 5 minutes, the 10 minutes, just chip away, take that little break. But that was just a reminder, you never give yourself enough credit. You've been working hard, you've been doing it, and then it's all gonna be okay, and trust the process.
When it comes to working out, I had a friend who taught me this, and I do it, and I always feel silly doing it, but it helps me get through the set. So he's told me, count to 10.
Okay.
If you can reach to 10, take a deep breath and count to 10 again until you finish it. And he's because you can always get to 10. It's just 10 seconds. And I was like, okay. So I'm doing like the weightlifting and I'm just like one, two,
Mhm.
three, four. And I just do it until like I finish the set. And by the time I realize it, sometimes it's 3 times me counting to 10, but I finish it. But at least in my head, I feel like there's a sense of relief and accomplishment. You're like, yes, I made it 10 seconds. Can I do 10 more seconds? Okay, let's do it. And if I feel that my body, you also have to listen to your body. If it's like
Yes,
too
yeah,
much, don't like just, it's okay to let it go.
yeah. If you keep with it, like, I can now do a 45-second plank, and when I do the circuits or whatever, do a couple of them. Like, I can do 43 or 4 45-second planks in my little circuit training. I
Mhm.
couldn't have done that 6 months ago.
Your body's building the endurance.
Mhm.
Same thing as your mind.
Yes.
The more you do it in these exercises, the more you're strengthening that muscle.
Exactly. And I encourage everyone listening, find a mindfulness practice. That might not be meditation. I have a friend that loves classical music, and that's the way he gets his Zen on. When I mow, I find that very relaxing. I feel like I can do a mind dump when do that. So find something that works for you, but it's really important to have something that is some type of mindfulness practice.
So this is the last question, and I really love this conversation.
Thank you. I've enjoyed it.
So
You're
this
wise beyond your years.
Thank you, thank you. I feel like we can probably go for hours, and I can probably pick your brain. So I might bring you back on because I really love this conversation. So this is the last question. I ask everybody this question. It's the whole premise of the Unicorn podcast. So, in your opinion, what is a key factor that helps a person transform into the unicorn journey to reach their purpose and their happiness?
That's a great question. I just love the whole premise of your podcast. I would say first that you need to understand and believe that you have the ability to be the unicorn. We talked about earlier, whose voice is that telling you that you can't be the amazing person that you are? So first you have to believe that. And what's also very important is that you come up with a definition of what does it mean to be a unicorn to you. Here in our society, that money seems to be the main goal or the main measurement of success, and I don't believe that. Are you happy?
Mm,
Did you make a difference in someone else's life? How are you supporting others? Because we all know that. What does that study say? Something which shocked me, that it's 75 grand, you tap out the happiness thing, and if you have 75,000, you're most likely going to be happy. And so we have to, well, it's a whole other conversation to society about what we do things, but I would just encourage people, come up with that definition for you. What does it mean to you to be a unicorn?
I love that. And yet, each person's happiness is different.
Mhm.
When I ask people this question, define your happiness. And if it's something having to do with material things, I said, okay, that's a good starting point. Now let's go beyond that. The thing is that these material things they fade.
Mhm.
It's a instant gratification.
Yeah.
Once you get it, it goes away. It has no meaning. It has no purpose. It's gonna bring you happiness for a little bit, but it's not it's not the long lasting one that's gonna fulfill your life every single
Right. I like to use the donut analogy. I'm like, "Oh, man, I wanna eat that donut. It's looking so yummy." And then an hour later, I don't feel so good. So I'm like, you gotta remind yourself, like, the donut might lead you to temporary happiness, but you're feeling it an hour later.
Exactly, and then you would need another donut, and you need another donut, same thing with income. There's never gonna be this magic number that's gonna solve
Yeah.
all your problems.
Right.
I know people who are very wealthy who are not so happy,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
I know people who are, I don't wanna say poor, but they're comfortable in their life, and they exude happiness. There's everything about their life is just like, rainbows and sunshines. And I'm like, I want to be where you're at.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. There's something learned from that.
Yeah. And I humbled myself a long time ago where I had a friend who she and her family live comfortably. And I was always striving to like, I need this, I need that, I need to make this much money. And she makes maybe a portion of what I make, but she has such a fruitful life. And I
Mhm.
sat down with her and I was like, how is it that I make more money, but I'm so miserable? And you're just like so happy. And then she
Yeah.
just said, you need to find that inside you. And that's when I
Mhm.
started my journey. And I really hope that others listening to this can really start their journey and realize that material things are not going to make you happy.
They aren't. But you just gotta take that first step, but you can
Hmm.
do it. And you're listening to the podcast, so this is information and many examples of how that first step can be.
Hmm. Yep. Completely agree. And if somebody wants to get a hold of you or maybe hire you or buy your books, how can they do so?
They can go to reawakenyourbrilliance.com. I got all my books there. I've got them on Amazon. I've got affirmations. I've got classes, and I have a free newsletter. And they get 10 free tips to declutter your life. And I give you a bam, take action right now. So for like emotional holiday, I've got something for you to get started. And then all my social media, and you can find me there.
Perfect. And for the listeners, I'll be posting all of this information in the show notes. So feel free to just click the links. Also, if you want, you can go to my website at raygoza-consulting.com, where I will have the Unicorn Wall of Fame, and you'll see her on there with her picture, bio, and links as well. So feel free to check either out. And quick reminder, episodes come out every Friday at 7 a.m. And don't forget to leave us a 5-star review. Thank you so much for everything. I love this conversation so much.
Thank you for having me. And I enjoyed today. And thank you for everything you're doing to make a difference in people's lives.
Thank you so much. Until next time. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks again for listening to Finding the Unicorn in You.